So this is Baruch here. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. Now my Chavrusa Baruch Hashem is at a retreat, or he has been, and he's traveling. And I'm here. There's no Sefer Tzniut this week, until at least Wednesday. That's Hashem. And also the other shit that we do in the ARI, which is called Rosh Hashanah. So we're not doing that. We're going to go right away into the drush on Kriat Shemah. For those of you who want to know what's going on when we do Kriat Shemah, well, this is a good place to find it. And just getting myself lined up a little bit better here. We're going to read here down at the bottom of page Mem Vav. And this is the second drush, but here we're just doing particularly the Tiv-what. Now what we're dealing with here is that the drush Shnei, this is the second drush, that's drush base, it says up at the top. So let's get over here again. And he says, which deals with the shini, the hefresh, the differences. Sheyesh ba'arba b'chinas of Kriat Shemah, that when we say the Kriat Shemah, there are 4 differences that we need to know about. Here's what he writes. Being on the shinui froshim, so he says the differences. Sheyesh ba'arba pa'amim sha'anu omrim Kriat Shemah b'kol yom, the 4 times that we say Kriat Shemah every day. That is, the first one is the Karbanos, Omrim Pasuk Rishon, the Shema, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso, L'Avored Bilvad. Now this is what the Tiv says, and the Tiv is learning the Rishash, learning the Rav. And I just wonder what kind of sitter he's using, because I know the Tiv is Ashkenaz. And let's go on. L'Bishach Shlosha Pa'amim Ana Omrim Kol Shlosha Parshios, but the other 3 times that we learn, that we say the Kriat Shema, we say the whole Kriat Shema. This is with the 3 parshios, shall the Kriat Shema. Avidim Kriat Shema shalameta, even the Kriat Shema that we say at nighttime, which is the least of them. The Moshe Kasav Rav Kaman, the Rav is going to get into this later on. This is the language of the Rav. Hine Chasidim Rishonim, Lo Choyetzirichem Rak Lomer Pasuk Rishon Shema Yisrael. The Chasidim, the original Chasidim, only had to say the first pasuk. They didn't need to say the rest of it. So he says, Kanizka b'Gemara, the Gemara brings this. The Sagi the Hubachad Pasuka the Rachme, that it was enough for them to say one pasuk, that pasuk would bring down the Rachmanas. So we are at the lowest levels. We're in the final generations before the end of this time. So Chalavai would be that we've been able to say all the different kavanos, all the different revelations to ourselves that takes place, and especially with the yichud that takes place in the Kriat Shema. Kadei shenuchel the grom zivug elyon, to be able to make the upper zivug, shall acharad sos laila, which takes place after midnight. Kadei l'chadesh as in the neshamas yishanos, because that's what happens after midnight. After midnight, you have the chance to be able to renew the neshamas yishanos. So the thing goes like this. At the beginning, we say the entire Kriat Shema, Ad Kan. So it's Roim Mekan Shahar Rab Sober. So these are the words of the ARI. That the Rab holds Shakahiyom Kulano Chayav, the crows call her Shlosha Parshios B'Kriat Shema. Now we have to say all the 3 parshas of Kriat Shema Shalamita by the bedside. Then he goes on Vihine the command Drosh Vav. So later on, when you get to the 6th Drosh, Ubetachid Sarak Shatikra Drosh Vav Hanizka the command. So at first that you should really read the 6th drush that we have in this sefer, and this the command and Bisham Tavin Hativ, and from there you're really going to understand everything very well. The Khan Kitzur Rabbeinu, because here Rabbeinu was only saying this in a very short way. So he's Amiris Kriat Shema de Yotzer. So before you say the Kriat Shema of Yotzer, he says Bezer Anpin Kol Yokol Hatzalan de Katnus Mitzad Ima B'Shlemos. So let's say this again. You're at Yotzer. This is the Kriat Shema that's said after Baruch Hu. Now we're calling this Yotzer. The Mukubalim call it Yotzer. So this is actually the beginning of Yotzer, is Lashon Yetzira's creation, and this is the Olam Labriya that we enter into. So when we enter that place after Baruch Hu, at that time, Zer Anpin had the entire tzelem of Katnas mitzad ima b'shleimus. What's the tzelem? It means it has the interior aspect is the tzadi of tzelem, goes into Zer Anpin, and two makifim. One is the Lamed Tzelem, and one is the would be the lesser of the two, and called the Makifim, and the Mem Tzelem, which is the greater of the two Makifim. Shehem Panimi Umakif, so these things are called the Panimi and Makif. It has all the Panimi and the Makif in the side of Ima. Uma'aba, but at this time, Hoyolo Rak Hatzadi, the Katnas Dilvad. At this time, Zer Anpin had no mochim makifim attached to him. Only the tzadi of the tzelem, which we've learned in other shiurim, the tzadi of the tzelem is an aspect of light. There are three different parts of the light called by the acronym tzelem, which in regular Hebrew means shade. But over here it means the tzadi of the tzelem is the aspect of Ima that comes into Zer Anpin that he can digest, so to speak, and grow from. The other two lights are much greater than that. They're the Lamed of the Tzelem and the Mem of the Tzelem. So one is closer to Zer Anpin and penetrates more easily. And then the Tzadi of the Tzelem is a tremendously powerful light of the Ein Sof that is really not able to be absorbed into Zer Anpin and shines from the outside of Zer Anpin. So he says, at this time, let me read it again. He says, Hoya kol hatzalam dekatas mitzad ima b'shleimus. The entire tzelem of Ima, that is the tzadi that goes into Ima, and the lamed of the men have now been brought to shine into Ima. Shehem panimi umakif. They're called the panimi and the makif. So she has from the side of Ima, she has the panimi and the makif. That's the entire tzelem. The ma'aba hoyalo rak hatzadi dekatnas b'vad. He only had the part that goes into him. But it has to be added onto him to bring a greater light from these other two aspects of Ima. Shuhu ha-panimi levad, he only has the panimi chavacholam and mem, shuhu ha-makif ta'aba, lo koyu lo hadayim, he still didn't have it. Now, I like the way that the Tiv is doing this. He's helping me to understand. And so this is because it's a complex, you have four different plays here, you have four different locations, you have all different kinds of fours going on here, and we try to track them down. Then he said, Kasha'ana Omrim Tevis Yisrael. So they're magic words, so to speak, in the Shemah. Each one of them is a magic word, but the fact of the matter is that we're focusing here on movement of Mochin into Zer Anpin. So when you say, Kasha'ana Omrim Tevis Yisrael B'Kriya Shema, the Yotza, the Chakras, so now you're in what we call the Chakra, Yotza, the Chakras. Now he gets the Lamed Mem Katnas that he did not have before. Nimsa Shebetevis Yisrael. So on that word Yisrael, the Kriya Shema, the Yotzer, Yesh Kavar Lazah. At that point, when you say Shema, and then the next word Yisrael, now at this point, Kol HaMochin the Katnas the Gamri. Zer Anpin now has all of the Mochin the Katnas. So the side of the Makif and the Benimi and the Makif on the side of Ima. The Benimi and the Makif on the side of Abba. So he's Makif Haim the Abba Haim the Ima. So he has both of them. Let's move on to this light print. It starts right here. So he says, Niknasim. Let's find where to go. Rak Hashisha Kitzvos the Mochin the Godless the Ima Levad. Now, through all of the Kriya Shema, I believe he's going to say this in more detail. Ima, of course, has 10 spheros. So the spheros that actually enter into Ima, then this is expanded consciousness because Bina is beyond the world of Zer Anpin and his Nukva. So this is panimi to him. This is closer to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. This is a light which is much more refined and much greater. It leads to greater awareness of godliness. So he said, Rak Hashisha Kitzvos, the Mochin the Godless, the Ima Levad. That's all that comes into him at this time of the Mochin the Godless. Believe Shum Mochin the Katnas. But no Mochin the Katnas comes in. They come in because he already has all the Mochin the Katnas. Now he goes on, the B'Tevis Yisrael Nigmar Kavar, the Hikan is called the Mochin the Katnas the Gambi, because at this point, I think I probably read the top part wrong. So, no, he said, I'm okay. So he said, let me read again. So he said, the B'Tevis Yisrael Nigmar Kavar, the Hikan. So now, when you say the word Yisrael, remember that all of the mochim, this is the Kriat Shema of Yotzer, this is the main Kriat Shema of the day. This is the highlight of the day, takes place in the morning. So he says that at this time, Kavar lehikones ha-mochen dekantas legamri. The mochen have come in completely at this point, but the mochen have kantas. Now that's on the word Yisrael, the magic world. The fi tevis echad, because lifnei tevis echad, it comes in before tevis echad. And so this is a chiddush that we need to know. That before bright times come dark ones. So here the dark times is the needs, the lacks, the faults, all the problems that go with continence. You're trying to make your way in the dark world. That has to be offered up to Hashem Yisbarach, who brings back light. We need to be honest about our problems. We need to be honest about who we really are. And then you'll be able to see it. Lifnei tevis echad, niknas of zer anpen, kol hamochen de katnas agamri. At this point, when you say the word echad, come into zer anpen, all of the mochen de katnas completely. Over tevis echad, now you come to the tevis echad of the Shema Yisrael. Now asa chazivik da abba ve'ima. This actually is the concept of bringing opposites together, because echad could be broken down. You see in this in Bershas in the two different parts. Ach, which is the gematria 9, and Dalet, which refers to Malchus. This is the yichud of all of the Mochim coming in to together, Zer Anpin and Malchus, first in Katnas, and then coming into, because of that's their natural way, that they're limited, but their coming together causes a yichud to take place in Abba Ve'ima. So he says, Na'azah chazivik de Abba Ve'ima kadei lahamsha kamocha de gadlat Zer Anpin v'nuk. Without that, and it's a whole process. It really starts with the bringing in of all of the mochad dekatnas. It's all the neediness that we have, bringing a yichud into those mochad of katnas between Zachar and Nuk in the best way that we can, which produces, in the Kriat Shema itself, which produces yichud of Abba Be'ima, which goes all the way up to the Rob of Ma'alos and brings down the Shefa from the inside into us. Then they bring mochen the godless into Zah, v'nuk minikitzonius atik. Because at this point they're bringing it from a very high place. Now once again, this is station. Shehem hamochim hayoseh cheshuvim, because the mochim that settled in, this is my understanding, it's settled in atik, because atik is so panimi, that therefore it's like the goldest gold, or the most purest, actually it was more like the most purest silver. The most purest silver, that we could possibly have at this time. He says, Kevan, shebe'echod niknas raka shisha kitzvahs the godless. So we understand like this, at the Kriat Shema, you're not dealing with all of the mochen the godless. You're being only with the vok of the mochen the godless of Ima, but nothing from Abba. But this is godless. It's a tremendous advance. So v'keven shegavar niknas ukol hamochen the katnas, because the pattern is it first comes into katnas. V'lechein kochel shel zer anpin chazak. So therefore zer anpin is stronger, because he has all the light that he can. He has the motivation to try to be able to build himself up. Sheyochel l'kabel hamochen the godless afilu min gitzonius atek. And at this point, his strength, he is so complete in katnas that he can now bring down the mochin, the godless, that are coming from him through the from Atek, from the Chitzonius of Atek, which, as I said before, an extremely Chitzoni place, Panini place in relationship to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Masha Ein Kain Kashitzarek Odikonis Be'echad. That's not the case. If you had a situation where there was still some of the katnas left, so when you came to say Echad, Chelek mechamochen de katnas, ima shisha kitzvos de mochen de godless, because there are also times when you have some katnas that needs to come in at that time. Then you're not able to get to that level. So he says the mochin. So I'm trying to draw a picture of the idea of why we need, I said this question before, why we need to have these stops along the way, where we talk about the Kitzonius of Atik, and then the Panemius of Arich, and then the Kitzonius of Arich, and then the Kitzonius of Abba Ve'ima. So why do we have all these different places if the chef is all coming from the same source, which is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu? This was my question. And he's answering it, but I'm not 100% getting it yet. He says he's answering it. He said because you have Atik, for example, is a place where you get the greatest amount of shefa of Atik coming to you. All the rest become passageways, just passageways limiting down the light, of course, but the quality, the inner quality of it is the quality of Atik. So this is what you could have when all of the mocha, the katnas are present. That your whole awareness of your person, this is, I'm talking about, we are the representatives, actually a manifestation of Zeranpin in his Nulk in this world. So this world is female and we're here. So here we are, we're operating. So what we can operate and what we can produce here is the same thing as what is being said here. As we say the Kriat Shemah, we're causing this Yikudim from our place, from our little smoke signals down here in this dark world. And that's what he's saying. So he said, look, the Katzvach, the God is Oz Enim Yochol L'Kabel B'Yachad Mochen Gevovim Ke'ela. Then he's not able to receive such high level if it's not coming from the top of Atik, because all of there's some mixture of katnas in that needs to still keep coming in, and we'll see that now. The Eitz Chaim Mevar Rab Barucha. Then the Rab goes into this a lot in detail. The Eitz Chaim. Every single partsiv, every single sphera is a system that works like this. All of them have these two aspects. So understand this is a fact, that all partsufim, all spheros, all almost, all everything has an inside and an outside. Over there, there's a lot of parushim. All different kinds of different ways of looking at it. Man nikra panemius, that is, what exactly is panemius? Over there, I'd like to know. Amaktiv gitzonius, but panemius hu madrega yosech shuva bechitzonius. So if you're comparing inside to outside, and we understand, why do we say that? We say that the inside is much more powerful or much richer than the outside. Why? Because it's closer to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Because in this model that the ARI is showing us here, the best that we can understand is that inside of ourselves, inside of everything, is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. So inside of that, as you could start reaching towards that place, or start getting towards that place, then you're connecting to eternity. And this is what he's saying. That's why Panemius is more important. But there is no concept. You have to understand this. You can only understand one thing from the other. If you say there's a panemius, it's mashma, there's a chitzonius. If there's a chitzonius, it's mashma, there's a panemius. And it's always like that. There's a zivug between the two. Okay? He says, V'hu medrega yosech hashuva mechitzonius, v'hu gedugmas neshama shuhu hapanemi l'gabi haguf. It's just like that. He said, V'shuhu hachitzoni, which is on the outside, the body is on the outside. And that's the shir for today, and I want to thank you for listening. This is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Koel.